Hello and welcome again. I'd like to do a little video today about comparing Thrive Architect and Elementor Pro. So the pros and cons of each of them into a little bit more detail. I did a video recently about Thrive Architect, Elementor, Divi, and Beaver Builder. I can put a link on below this video to that one as well if you want to see this, where I was building a little part of a page and comparing how easy or harder it was between each of those tools. Now I want to compare in a little bit more details my favorite two, Thrive Architect and Elementor, the pros and cons of each of them. So I'm going to start with Thrive Architect. Thrive Architect, which is the new version of Thrive Content Builder, by the way. This is the latest version as of today, 2028. I've built this landing page with that few months ago, and I started with Elementor from memory, but I switched to Thrive Architect because I had more control. So this is one of the things that I want to show you, the control that we have over in Thrive Architect. So first of all, the pros. I feel that Thrive Architect is really faster in terms of development time. The interface I feel is better even than Elementor. Sorry. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of that. As I mentioned, this is a landing page. I did use this on the regular site as well. And to be quite honest, the advantage of Thrive Architect were not as obvious. But with a landing page, this is really the go-to software. So if I select any element, you see the interface here. We have opening and closing tab that we can keep open if we want to from one element to the other. But if we keep it closed, it will stay closed for the other element as well. So the most often used then can be open, so less scrolling to go to the elements, and no 3 tabs just like we have, for example, in Elementor. For example, one great, wonderful thing is the font customizer. So I didn't do that on that particular page because it wasn't available at the time. But let me just show you what I mean by that. If I come here and I have my template set up here, now I need to use a template. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on, but I need to have a template to take advantage of that. And we have the landing page settings. So we have different options here for the width and so on. But here for the text option, let me open that edit page text. And here we go. It is crazy how easy it is to work with that, and they just added, I just saw it wasn't there previously, the also the different sizes for different devices. So now we can even change the size of the text for those different devices. We cannot see my heading 1 here because simply it's white on white, but if I click on it, you see that I can edit my H1, so I have all my typography options, my size options, and so on. And of course my heading 2, heading 3, and so on. But if I want to change, for example, the font for all my headings at the same time, I can just click on all headings here and it will select all my levels of heading. And if I change, for example, the font face here, it's going to be changed for my entire set. So that's really, really cool, really fast to use that. Okay. Then of course we have regular text, we have bold text, italic text, and so on. And we have here also hyperlinks. Sorry, again it's white on white, but if I change that to a different color, let's say, then we'll be able to see that as well. So this is pretty cool. It does that for the entire page at the same time. So one great thing about that, and of course I can select all text if I want to have a current custom font or custom color for all my different type of text. So this is one great thing about Thrive Architect. Now we have that reminder here. I'm going to stop that. This is a good thing or a bad thing depending on whether you want that or not, but each 10 minutes it's going to remind you to save the file, so you're sure not to lose anything. That could be a good thing. If you find it annoying, of course, you can always turn it off. From memory, yeah, we cannot decide whether we want that to be more than 10 minutes or not. So it's an on and off switch. So as I mentioned, in general, I feel that the interface is faster, like I said, because of the elements here that we can toggle on and off or open and close, and that's a great thing for that. We have a way easier way of handling spacing. Let's say, for example, if I come here and I select my element, my button here, if I want to change the spacing of it, so layout and position, and as you can see, we have the margin and padding in one dialog box here, and I can easily, just by clicking and dragging, see in real time what it will look like. Of course, I can come here and type as well if I want to, but by clicking and dragging, this is really fast. This is really cool. This is a good way of using that, and I can do the same for the padding as well. And of course, if I want to do that on all the sides at the same time, I can always click on that little chain icon, and then I'm going to change on all the sides at the same time. And notice that it started from where it were, so it's not necessarily now that they have all the same dimension. Of course, if we start from 0 or 1 or 10, that will be the case, but it just changes proportionally by doing that like that. So that's really cool, that feature here. So I really feel that this is a way better way of, and more visual way of handling the spacing than the other tool that we're going to talk about later on. For another great thing that we have here, if I select that button, for example, you see that we have here at the top what we would call breadcrumbs. So I have my button here, but it shows me that I've been inside the content box, which is inside another content box. So I can always click on that to select the parent element and move from one level to the other like that in the page itself. So that's really, really cool. So that's an easy way of selecting if you have columns, for example, like that. That's an easy way to select the current column, okay? All the columns, in other words, the entire row, or the content box that surrounds it, and so on. So that's really an easy way to select things, and a faster way and more visual way to select nested elements. One other thing that I really like is the colors. So if I come here, for example, and I want to change the color here on my text, you can see that I have my color and I have a little plus button here, so I can add that color to my favorite color, and now it's going to be available everywhere. So if I come for that text again, but it can be on different things than the text, of course, a background or things like that, my color is always there. Now we have a similar feature in Elementor, but Elementor, it's way harder. We need to go into our settings and decide the default color here. So these are the default color for the entire page, but these are not the color that will appear in my panel. For example, if I let's say I drag a heading here and I want to change the color of my heading, these are not the colors that appear there. If I want to change the color that appears there, I need to go into my color picker here, and now I can change the color for the entire site. But if I don't have a color right away and I have it later, I need to come back there and add it. So I feel that it's less convenient than just simply add it directly to my plus button, sorry, that we have here. And there's no real limit here to how many colors that we can add. Okay, we can use that as well, other color palette. And this one, of course, we are limited to the, I think I'm not on the right page here, but anyway, so we are limited in the color picker here to those 8 colors. So that's one of the other differences that we have there. Now, another thing, that's the only real inline editor. Yes, inline editing has been added to Elementor since few versions, But to be quite honest, this is way less powerful. For example, if I want to have a two-color text like this one, it is still not possible in Elementor unless we have some additional plugins. By the way, Elementor Extra, I think, allows us to do so. But I cannot just select this text here and make it a different color. Okay, if I come here, even if I select that, if I try to click there, it will deselect and everything. And if I change the color, it's going to change the entire color as well. So yes, we have two choices here, the dialog box there, or simply typing right away if you just want to type the text. But if you want to have a two-color text like in my example here, this is simply not possible. Thrive Architect, really easy. We click, we insert a heading or a text. We have the toolbar here at the top now that we can decide which type of heading or decide the alignment and so on, whether it's bold. But if I want to change the color, I can just select a word or something like that and switch the color right there. The apply button, by the way, is optional, though it's always there. So it's really easy to change a color on the fly for one word or one part of a sentence, just like that. I really like that feature. And by the way, even with additional plugins in Elementor, you cannot put more than two colors. And here I can put as many colors as I want. I could have each word a different color if I wanted to. Always possible like that. So pretty interesting here. What else? We have way more customization in Thrive Architect than we have in other tools like Elementor, or even more than all the others, because Elementor is really good at it as well. But we have more options here. Let me give you a little example here of something that I have. So let me rebuild that from scratch. If I want to add a content box here, if you want to have something that takes the entire width, you need to have a background section. So that's a little drawback, if I can say it like that, because you need to know that. But if it's a regular box like the others, I'm going to put that one here. It shows me where it's going to be. And let's say, for example, I want this one to have a background. So the background style here, I'm going to go with an image. Choose my image. Let's use that one. You can choose the place. I can choose whether it's going to repeat itself or not. And I can click on the static background image. Well, they call it that way, but this is what we commonly refer to as a parallax effect. So I'm not going to use the one in that particular case. I'm going to set my content box here to have a width, minimum height. So let's say, for example, something like 500. You can always click and drag, by the way, again here, but sometimes it's easier to just click. And what I would want is my text to fill that area but not go over that area here. So first of all, I'm going to add a little overlay here. So one way to have another overlay, I know that we can have overlays in Elementor. I'm going to show that after. But here in Thrive Architect, it works a little bit differently. As you can see, we can add as many layers. It works as layers as we want. So we can add more than one image, or we can add, in this case, for example, a solid color. I'm going to use my black color. And just by switching the order here, just like in Photoshop for layers, we can change the order of all of them. So that's really cool. Now in this particular case, of course, I want my color to be transparent. So let's go with something like 25%. Okay. So that makes a good overlay. Now let's put our text content. So let's drag a text here. And I think I still have it in my pasteboard. Here we go. So I'm going to change the color here to be in white. Well, that's really on a line-by-line basis. So let's select all my text. All right. And now before I change the height, I want to change the width. So in regular browsers, or not browsers, but page builder, like for example, Elementor is one of them, I would have to play with margins or try to insert new columns or things like that to be able to do the effect that I want. Thrive Architects, really easy to do the effect that I want if I don't want to have the text above that. Let's say that it was another image or something like that. So I want to have my content just on the left side here. So we have a feature called maximum width, which is set to auto, but I can simply drag that to put a maximum width on that text. So if the screen is smaller, it's going to be smaller as well, but the maximum amount is like that, and we don't have to play with margin. That will change depending on the size, and if we resize or we have a size between two sizes, then all the layout will be messed up and so on. So really easy to play like that. And of course now I can increase my top margin. I'm going to uncheck that to have it centered. I could probably, by the way, I did it like that, but there is certainly an option as well to decide the alignment of my content, so I could do it like that as well. Why not? Okay, and I can change my padding here to make a little bit more spacing. So let's say 20. All right, so maybe I need to change the width again a little bit because of that. And here we go. So that's really easy to do. Now doing the same thing in Elementor, let's say if I want to add a new section, and this one will have, for example, a default background. So let's add the same. Need to go inside my style, so already a little bit longer. Add an image. I'm going to change the height of the box as well, so we need to go back to layout, height set to minimum height, and then play with that to increase that to 500, just like we did for the other one. And then I'm going to add some text inside of that, no column, sorry, text editor. I'm going to switch for my color. All right. Now, if I want to have some columns, well, I can come here and, for example, for my column itself, try to change a value here, but no matter what I put, it's going to always remove it because we only have one column. So I would need to play with margins, and like I said, it's going to be a little bit hard to have the absolute value that we want. What I could do is add another column here and play with that one to resize it, and that will make the effect that I want in this particular case. But what about if I switch to tablet mode, then to change it a little bit, to have it up to there? For example, I'm stuck. I cannot even resize in tablet mode, so I can only resize in desktop mode, and it will resize automatically for the other screen sizes. Which is not the case, by the way. I forgot to show it to you, but if I switch to the tablet view in Thrive, now I can always, in this case it's center instead of left align, which is the case in Elementor. So maybe I can come here to have the same effect and switch my image here to be aligned left. Okay. But let's say now that I want to change that text again so that it goes only on that box, let's say, for example. So again, pretty easy to do so. Okay, and still center align on the other sense. And of course, on a mobile device, I want this to take the entire width, which will be the case by default, but I can just make sure by removing that, whoops, not on the right spot, removing that here to put 100%, let's say. Okay, so I think it was already taking 100% because of the number that was there, but just to make sure. And here we go. So pretty easy with Thrive Architect. Another great feature that we have in Thrive Architect, we can switch columns. So as you can see here, in my final example, I have an image on the left, then on the right, then on the left again. So I just copied those, changed the content and so on. And in Thrive Architect, what I can do is come to my columns, which is in fact my row, and simply switch my elements. So if I come here, you can see that we can just click on reverse order and boom, my content is already placed the way that I want. Now we have something not that different in in Elementor, sorry. We don't have that same feature, okay? If we select, for example, the columns or the row, we don't have that feature here, but it's not that hard. I can just click on the column and move it to the right side and it's gonna work. So that's not a big issue, but again, just a little bit easier in Thrive Architect. Next thing, the absolute positioning. So in this particular case, this is a real landing page that I've built. After I've built the home page, I've built it in French by default. Then the client decided that they wanted to have a multilingual page, so he wanted to have it in English, but he wanted to have a switch button on the top right here. So I already have all my settings done with my image here and so on, and suddenly I need to add a button here on the top bar as well. Since it's not a real top bar, I was a little bit stuck, if I can say it like that. But fortunately, since I had Thrive Architect, I realized that we can also use the absolute positioning. So here in my layout and position, we have the advanced, and there we have the choice between the positioning of auto, relative, and absolute. And when we use the absolute, we have that little edit position button that allows us to decide where we want to put that. And then from there, we can of course move it a little bit down or to the left or to the right and so on, depending on which side we are. So I can really place it exactly where I want it to be. So that's really great. That's a feature really great that I don't have in any other page builders. So doing the same thing in Elementor here, come in here and adding that in the bar here would require me to create another column and try to have it placed exactly in the right spot with margins and things like that. That would be a nightmare. So really easy to do with absolute positioning like that. Another feature that is new to Thrive Architect since a couple of versions is the possibility to remove the CSS from the theme. So let me, I've never done that, so I need to find where it is. Let me see. I think, oh, and by the way, we have set up page event. I'm going to talk about that a little bit after that. Okay, so I just found it. It's in the template setup, landing page setting, and here we have the advanced options. And as you can see, it automatically stripe out the CSS from the head section. So the CSS that comes from the theme is always loaded with any other page builder. So that adds to the weight of the page for absolutely nothing, because most of the time we're going to start fresh and we're going to add our own styles and so on directly on the page. So if you don't want that, if you still want to have the CSS from the theme, you can just check that and it will import that as well if you use that, for example, for your fonts and so on. But by default, it's going to strip out that CSS to make the page even lighter. So that's a good thing. Also, you might have seen that when I come here, I can always edit my HTML. So that's great. I can see and I can edit my HTML. So if something went wrong, something was added and I'm not able to delete it the right way or something like that, it's always possible to come here and do some manual modifications. Just click on that little checkbox here to validate or that one to cancel. And we have some custom CSS as well. So that's really, really neat. Also, one other thing is that you might see that when I mouse over any element here in my tool panel, we have some really special elements, by the way, guaranteed box. We have things really targeted for marketer, content reveal, that's going to reveal after a few seconds or after a click or something like that. Evergreen countdown, which is really great as well. So we have few features really targeted for marketers, affiliate marketers or things like that. So that's really great. Really targeted at landing pages as well, to be quite honest. So if you want to build a landing page, Thrive Architect is the go-to tool without any exception. For blogs as well, I think that it's going to be more convenient, have more tools than the others. What I wanted to show you is that, like I said, let's go, for example, if I use, let's say, credit cards really often, I can click on that little pin here, and it's going to add that to my pinned item or favorite items, if you prefer, at the top. So I can always add different elements here. Whoops, sorry. Different elements here pinned at the top, so that I can always have fast access. I can always search for elements here, by the way, just like with Elementor, but I can have a fast access here as well if they are pinned. So if I just want to unpin them, they're going to go back to their default spot. One other great thing is that Thrive comes also with something called the Thrive Lightbox. So that's kind of a separate, I cannot say product because it comes with Thrive Architect, but you can always create your own lightbox. Let me just try to open one. Alright, so here I have my Thrive Lightboxes, so I can add new Thrive Lightbox. For example, I have one here. That I've created to subscribe to a newsletter. So I build that with Thrive Architect just like any other. And then I can come here in my landing page and add a Thrive, so setup page event here, and I can add this lightbox. What I did in this particular case was a timer, so let's add a new one. So it can be an exit intent or timer. So I choose the amount of time, and then what will be the option. So open a Thrive Lightbox or Thrive Leads, which I don't have right now. This is a separate product. And I decide which one and if there's any animation. So this is something really cool as well that we have. And again, this is good for landing pages, really. So one other difference, well, I'm going to talk about that one later on in the video. So one, I don't know if I could say a cons. A lot of those customizations that I have, advanced customization in the template setup here, landing settings, comes from the fact that I'm using a landing page. So landing page option here, the text options and so on. So if I just edit a regular page inside of any other page builder with my default theme, menu and footer and so on, I don't have those options here. So I'm left with the default, for example, fonts that I can customize, of course, on each paragraph, but I don't have the overall settings that I have in the other option. So that's not as convenient as it is. So for example, if I want to get rid of the width and I want to get rid of the menu and so on, then I can always change my landing page to choose another one, and that's a bunch that comes with Thrive Architect. We're going to talk about that later on. But I really need to have a landing page in order to have all those settings here. So that could be a little drawback, though most of the other page builders anyway don't have those options. But anyway, it's only available with a template. Then another con is, as you can see, the interface. Of course, right now I'm in English, but the interface is only in English. Elementor, for example, if I'm using a different language, and since I'm in Quebec, Canada, a lot of my clients are French. So if I install Elementor, they will be able to use it in French, and that's a great thing. Elementor and most of the plugins that comes with Elementor Pro, most of the elements, and some other plugins that we can add as well, come in multilingual. So with Thrive Architect, everything will still be in English. So that can be a little cons on this side as well. Now, this tool is really good for any website, I must admit, but even better for landing pages and marketers. This is really their target audience. Now let's switch to Elementor to see the pros and cons of that one. First of all, notice here that little strange menu here at the top. It doesn't come with Elementor. This is another little plugin that I have here called Admin Page Spider, and that allows me to quickly edit any page or post. And if I have Elementor or another page builder installed as well, it works with Thrive Architect as well, then I can directly edit that page in this case, Elementor. But the latest version that was released a couple of days ago allows us as well to have it right there, because when we are inside Elementor, we lose that top bar here. So they just decided to add that to the Elementor menu as well. So this is the Admin Page Spider Pro. It's not part of Elementor itself. So now let's talk really about Elementor. If I compare the landing page, I started to build a landing page just to compare a while ago. So yes, I have two colors here, by the way, but I just used the span. I did something different here. I used a span tag and I went into my CSS. I don't know if it's here or somewhere else. Yeah, here. And I just styled it differently. So it's always possible to do that, but it's just that you have to do a little bit of manual work. Now, let's go with the advantage of Elementor. Well, first of all, the real big advantage of Elementor or Elementor Pro over Thrive Architect, of course, Elementor itself, it's free. So that's why I want to compare apples with apples. I'm going to compare the Pro version with Thrive Architect, which is a paid plugin. The Pro is that we have, it's insane the amount of elements or widgets, if you prefer, that comes with Elementor. So we have the basic one, we have the Pro ones, and we have the let me see here. I have a couple of extensions added that I'm going to show you after. General elements here and WordPress elements. So we have enormous, sorry, I'm French. The enormous amount of things that we can put here, insert here. So that's the big advantage of Elementor over any other, and especially Thrive Architect. We have an enormous amount of widgets that we can add. So that prevents us from always having to add other plugins. So for example, an example of them that we have here is forms. So forms can be added directly from Elementor, and it looks like that. And we have, for example, the fields that we can add. We can directly decide the look of the submit button, what we do after submitting, so we can add different things here, send to MailChimp, for example, and so on. Then we add, it adds new drop down here depending on what we have chosen. So here for my email, and of course, since I have added MailChimp as well, I need to link it to my MailChimp key and so on. But this is really complete. This is really great. Don't have to have Contact Form 7 or any other plugin in order to use forms like that. So that's really great. One of the other thing that Thrive Architect, by the way, is always improving. So some things might come in. It's still the version 2, which is Architect, is still young. So maybe at some point some other elements will be added. But one that will never be added are sliders. And I cannot necessarily, I really agree with them that sliders are bad and should not be used, to be quite honest, but if client wants it, they want it. So we have slider here inside of Elementor, really easy to insert and to use. We can change, of course, the background for an image. So let's say this one. So really easy to use as well. Okay, change the text and so on. So we don't have full control. For example, if we want to have two texts like that, we just have one, but still most of the things are pretty easy to change, and it will be convenient for most people. So sliders, forms. One of the great things that we can have also is our custom menu. So if you don't like the menu that comes with your theme, you can always add your own menu here. And we have many options that comes with Elementor. As for the look, so if I align that to the right, by default it's going to be underline, but we can change that to double line or anything. So we have a really great customization. And one of the advantage of that is one that you know Elementor, you know how to use it. You don't have to learn again how to use all of those elements as if I was using an external plugin, for example. And of course, this tells us that what has already been announced, by the way, Elementor 2 will allow us to create custom headers and footers. So elements like the menu that we see here, but other elements as well for the widget and the footer, for example, and for, I don't know, shopping cart or things like that. This will always be added in Elementor 2. So great addition that is coming in few weeks for the first version, but they'll be adding to that over the months. So that will be a great addition as well. A great thing that we cannot have in other page builder for now, anyway, not Thrive Architect. What else? One of the big advantage, we already have a lot of elements or widget that comes with it, but we can also add more if we have other builder plugin, if I can say it like that. For example, in my case, I have added the add-ons for Elementor Pro that I've bought from Elementor add-on. I also have installed Elementor's add-on is Widget. That's a free plugin that we can download that adds mostly for from memory for Word e-commerce like WooCommerce and things like that. We have Elementor Extra. This is the main one that I've used so far. That allows us, for example, to use parallax effect and better sliders and things like that. And I have installed Essential add-on for Elementor Pro as well. So I have many installed just to show you the amount of elements that we can have. So for example, here, the Elementor add-on widget. So services, type grid, contact form. Of course, I don't have a lot of things here because WooCommerce is not installed, but this is more for WooCommerce, to be quite honest. I have here my essential add-ons for Elementor. So a bunch of things here, lightbox model, we have fancy text and so on, testimonials, flip boxes, Twitter feed and so on. That's really great. We also have Elementor Extra here, but Elementor Extra is not only about widget, it's the fact that we also have the some other options, maybe not in here, but for example, let me just find editing, for example, here. So we always have those little extra menu here that allows us to have something sticky, for example, to add parallax or to add tooltip. So we have that on each and every element, especially if I have a background like this one, for example, for my column. Then I have extra options right there to enable parallax and the parallax speed and direction after that. So Elementor without that will not be able so far to create parallax effect, maybe with Elementor 2. So just to mention that we have a bunch of things, and I also have the line mesh add-ons here as well that adds a bunch of other elements. Some of them are free. In my case, I have all the paid plugins, so more features even there. Okay, so it really depends on if I need those. I will make a choice between Elementor and maybe Thrive Architect as well. One of the great thing about Elementor as well with Elementor Pro, we need to have the Pro version, is that global widget element here. So for example, and it has happened to me, it's not as relevant of course for landing page, but if you're building an entire website, I have a website where I have created a form, for example, like this one. And what can be really cool is if I need to use that form somewhere else, for example on the home page and then the contact page and maybe somewhere else, then I will be able to create a global widget out of it. And the advantage of that is not only that we can easily reuse it somewhere else without having to save it as a template, for example, but also the fact that if I want to make a modification at one place, let's say the font, or I need to add a field or something like that, then I can do it in one place and it's going to be changed everywhere that I've used this global widget. So that's a great feature here, real-time saver. So for example, if I want to save that that form here, I can save that widget. And if I save that as a global widget here, I can say, for example, form. And now this will be available here to reuse in any other page. So for example, if I add a template here, we have a bunch of templates. Again, I'm going to come back to that after. But we have also my template here that we can create. And let me see, I didn't use global elements that much, so looks like that's not where it is. It's simply here in my global, sorry. My mistake. So I can just drag and drop from here. And as you can see, I can also edit that and unlink it if I don't want that to be updated anymore if we ever make a change. But if I edit that, then I can edit globally and all the changes will be applied everywhere. So let's say, for example, I add another field here. So it's going to be updated on each of the places that I use that widget. Now, one last thing is that I did some test comparison. I don't remember if I talked about that, but I think yes, in my other video. But Elementor, of course, in terms of development, I really feel that Thrive Architect is faster. But in terms of speed, in what I would call runtime, in other words, when we visit the website, Elementor seems to be the one that was the fastest among the four. So Thrive Architect was pretty near, but still Elementor was really number one. So it's not a major thing because, of course, if speed is really a major thing for you, and it should be in a certain way, then of course Elementor is better in that regard. But sometimes for maybe half a second or 200th of a second, you might prefer to still use another tool like Thrive Architect. So it really depends if you're a speed maniac or not. Okay, but of course it's not something like one will be in half a second and the other one will take 2 seconds to load. It's not that big of a difference. Okay, so it's really up to you there again, but I must admit that Elementor was a little bit faster. Of course, if I have all those add-ons widget, it will not be the case, but because it still load them, even if we don't use them, it will load the style sheet and JavaScript most of the time. So don't use any plugin if you don't need them. And most of those plugins, by the way, like for example Essential Add-on, I can go there and simply deactivate the elements that I don't need. So this way it will not be loaded for nothing. Okay, so that's a good thing. If I just need Elementor add-on, for example, for one specific thing, the team member, I can deactivate everything else. So it won't get loaded for nothing. Now, the cons of Elementor, well, like I already mentioned, there's no real inline editing here, so that's really a drawback as opposed to Thrive Architect. And there's no parallax effect unless we have an extra plugin to do so. So these are the two drawbacks. Of course, don't take into account all the other advantage of Thrive Architect. Now, what both of them have as well, they have a huge library asset. So for example, here if I add a template, as you can see in Elementor, sorry, we have many different layout that we can use to start with. So we have home pages, we have one page element, we have about pages, and so on. Some are pro, some are free. So there's really a good amount of elements here, and of course we can create our own template here, save it. That's the same for Thrive Architect as well, but we can do so. So that's really great. Okay, and now we can also filter them and add them to my favorites. We can do the same thing with Thrive Architect. So for example, let me go back to the right page. Okay, here we go. So if I go here, I can switch my landing page here. The difference that we have in Thrive Architect, and this is a good thing for me, maybe a little bit less design, but then again it depends on how we see that, is that they come in set. So for example, if I liked that set here, I can click on it and you can see that we don't have just one home page. For example, we have an entire set of elements. So the lead generation page, we have the download page, and so on and so forth. So we have the entire set that will keep the same look. So that's really great. And if we have entire website, let me try to find one. Just going fast here, but let's say this might be one. No. But anyway, if we have a set, and just need to find the right one, but we will have the about page, we will have the contact page, and so on, not just the home page. As opposed to Elementor, that seems to really separate that. So we have, for example, home page, but if I want to have an about page with the exact same type of look, then it's not necessarily available. And if it is anyway, like this one seems to be the same one, cake shop. So coffee shop here, cake shop, not the exact same one, but pretty similar. But you need to dig into all of them to try to find the page that goes with it. If it is available, it might not be the case. So it's a little bit harder to search through it, but I must admit that there are more choices. Another thing, both of them are really, really great on working with mobile devices. So this one, I can always, I'm in Elementor here, I can always switch to tablet view and change things just for tablet or just for mobiles. And for example, if I change, I don't know, the width of something, let's say my column here, and if I go to my style or if I go to my advanced here, you see that I always have that little button that allows me to specify a different margin for my desktop, for my tablet, and for my mobile. And of course it changes the look at the same time. Not the look, but the width at the same time in the preview. I have that as well for Thrive Architect. The difference in Thrive Architect is that you won't have those options here directly in the toolbar, but everything that you do in the desktop view will be for desktop, but will be applied to every other views as well, every other devices as well, except for example for column that will be resized automatically and be at some dimensions on top of one of the other. But if I change a color here, for example, it's going to be done for all the other sizes as well. If I change the size of the text, it will be done for everything at the same time. But if I want to come here and change that for this particular size, which is tablet, then I don't need to click on a specific thing. Just by changing the color, for example, here, it will be done only for tablet devices. So if I switch, it's going to be white on desktop and it's going to be red on tablet device. And for mobile, then in other words, it goes from tablet to mobile unless I specify otherwise. So that's really easy to use and really complete as well in both of those two tools. Both of them have history or revision or undo, so I can always come here and we have the revision manager. We have undo and redo with the control key as well. But if I go in revision manager, as you can see, I can always come back here and say that I want to restore a specific revision that was made. Okay, so it keeps track of that, and of course I can always do an undo if it's earlier than that in my current page. Okay, as for Elementor, same thing. We have the history here. Not sure that it can go, I think it's limited to what we have done today. So I don't think that if we save and close the page that we can reopen it and have all this history, as opposed to Thrive Architect. As you can see that we have older revision as well, revision that was made by somebody else a couple of months ago. So that's pretty great. Okay, so a little bit like the history that we have in WordPress by default, but still we have everything that we changed today, and we can always revert back one or many steps. Okay, both of them have access to that, and both of them finally have a way, depending on the theme that you're using. Sometimes you might be limited to, for example, a 2-column. If I use the default 2017 that comes with WordPress, I will always have a sidebar that can be a little annoying. So one thing that we can do here inside of Elementor and Thrive Architect is that we can change that from the default to, in this case, Elementor Canvas for landing page. So that will remove the header and footer, that will remove the limitation in the sidebar or the width of the page, and everything will be able to be controlled by Elementor, which is a good thing, especially for landing pages. But you can use that if you want to, for example, use the menu of Elementor as well. Thrive, we can do the exact same thing. So by default, it will come with the menu and everything from the theme. But of course, if you set here a landing page, so if you say change a landing page and you choose a blank one or one that already has some content, then it will remove altogether those limitations as well. Remove header, remove footer, sidebars, and allow you to have a full width page. So you can do that without having to install another plugin like Full Width Element, no matter which theme that you are using. Finally, comparison between the two. One of the good thing about Thrive Architect from my point of view, but depending on yours, is the pricing. So Elementor Pro, of course Elementor is free, but Elementor Pro comes at $49 for one site, $99 for 3 sites, and $199 for unlimited sites. This comes with 1 year of support and updates for all of them. So I do have the unlimited version license, if I should say. It does renew at $99 instead of $199, so I guess it's the same thing for the others, but still you will have to pay, for example, $50 every year to have access to the updates. Now that's not an expensive price, but still, depending on your client or how you do that, that can be a little bit annoying. Thrive Architect, you can always, first of all, of course, be a Thrive team member, so that way you have access to all that they do, plugins and themes and so on. But you can also buy Thrive Architect separately, alone. As you can see here, for a single license, it's $67, so a little bit more than Elementor. But for that license and all the others, this is an unlimited free updates. So this is a lifetime license. You do have just 1 year of support, and that's a good thing. So if you still need support, you will have to pay for that. But most of the time, once you have installed it, there's not really a good reason, unless you install it to many sites, which is not the case with that license. There's no real need to have updates, support, each and every year. So that license is more expensive the first year, but cheaper after the second year. And we don't have a 3 license pack, we have a 5 license pack, which is about the same price as the yearly one here, up to 5 sites. And for 15 sites we have 147, which is a little bit lower than this one, but this one is unlimited. So if you have 20 or more sites, you will have to buy more than 1 license pack. So in this point, it might over time become as expensive or more expensive. But what you can do is simply select the site single license and charge your client for it instead, and he will or she will have the unlimited lifetime license. So that's really something that you can do, and there's probably an affiliate program as well where you can benefit from using that license. So it's really up to you. Lifetime license. This one is a yearly license, but has the advantage of having the unlimited. So really up to you whether which one is best. But I can consider that to be an advantage of Thrive Architect. And personally, I had the chance, by the way, to buy it in the beginning. So Thrive Architect, I do have an unlimited site license, and I bought it for, I think, that price at the time, 4 years ago. And I still have access to Thrive Architect nowadays. So that's really great. Of course, if you buy the membership for a monthly or yearly membership for Thrive member, you have access to a lot more products. There are a bunch of products for affiliate marketers and so on, and themes as well. And I do believe that you could have the unlimited version of Thrive Architect. Probably you need an agency license, I think, so probably a little bit more expensive. But with that, you could have unlimited sites as well, from what I know. So, hope you found that video helpful. Please leave your comments below if you have any. What is your preferred tool and why? And if you found that review useful. So, have a good day and thanks for watching.